So this is Amy Murphy, and this is my presentation for substance abuse counseling. And for my substance, I chose alcohol. Some facts about alcohol. It's a drug found in all alcoholic drinks like beer, wine, and liquor such as vodka and whiskey. An alcoholic beverage is simply any drink that contains ethyl alcohol. Alcohol is best understood as a drug that reduces a person's ability to think rationally and distorts his or her judgment. It's a depressant drug, which means it slows down various sections of the brain and the central nervous system, and therefore it affects your ability to control your behavior and your bodily functions like thinking, talking, walking, and even breathing. A little timeline on alcohol. Just quickly, the early colonists first brought alcohol to America in the United States. In 1563, wine was first made in Florida and followed by the first beer being brewed in the New World in Virginia. It was brewed from Indian corn or maize. And although it was heavily used in the colonies, alcohol was viewed positively, but its abuse was condemned. Moving on to the 18th century, hard cider was often served as a currency in the American colonies. And by the 1770s, they had more than 140 rum distilleries, and they made about 4.8 million gallons annually. In the 19th century, the consumption of spirits dominated the drinking in the United States, and more personal, social, and moral problems were being blamed on alcohol. In 1803, cocktails were invented. Moving on to the temperance movement, in the 1800s, the American Temperance Union was formed, calling for voluntary abstention from drinking. Many other temperance groups popped up around the country. And in 1870, the American Association for the Study and Cure of Sobriety was founded and published a journal promoting the disease theory of alcoholism. In the 1900s, 1920, prohibition goes into effect. In 1933, it is repealed, and in 1935, Alcoholics Anonymous is established. In 1960 to the present, the American Alcohol Association defines alcoholism as a complex disease and suggests treatment through rehab, counseling, and education. And although we do have a much better understanding of the harms of alcohol use today, excessive drinking continues to be a problem. Short-term effects of alcohol: slurred speech, drowsiness, vomiting, upset stomach, headaches, breathing difficulties, distorted vision and hearing, unconsciousness, impaired judgment, decreased perception and coordination, and blackouts. Long-term effects of alcohol use include unintentional injuries like car crashes, falls, burns, drownings, intentional injuries like sexual assault, domestic violence, firearm injuries, increased on-the-job injuries, increased family problems, broken relationships, alcohol poisoning, high blood pressure and other heart-related diseases, liver damage, and nerve damage. A few screening tools for alcoholism that's used. The CAGE screening tool has 4 questions, and they include: have you ever felt you should cut down on your drinking? Have people annoyed you by criticizing your drinking? Have you ever felt guilty about your drinking? And have you ever had an eye-opener or a drink first thing in the morning to steady your nerves? And the CAGE screening tool is generally self-administered. And one positive answer reflects you should probably take a closer look at your drinking, and 2 or more positive answers assume that you do have a drinking problem. Another screening tool is the audit, and this is the Alcohol Use Disorders Alcohol Use Disorders Identification Test. It's made up of 10 questions concerning hazardous drinking, alcohol dependency, and harmful alcohol use. It can be used by healthcare providers and also social service providers, which is a benefit. It's available in a number of languages. Adjustments can be made for cultural drinking customs, like serving size of each drink, strength of drinks, etc. Clinical screening procedures, which are recommended, such as lab testing, blood work, etc., can only be administered by qualified healthcare professionals, and that can be a drawback to this test. It can be self-administered as a self-report, or it can be conducted in an interview with a therapist or social service worker. Alcohol abuse prevention. What can you do to help alcohol abuse prevention? You can choose not to drink too much yourself and help others not do it. If you choose to drink alcohol, moderate your alcohol consumption. No more than 1 drink per day for women and no more than 2 drinks per day for men. Talk to your healthcare provider about your drinking behavior and request counseling or treatment if you do drink too much. And do not serve or provide alcohol to those who should not be drinking, like underage people, people who are already intoxicated. What can communities do to work on alcohol abuse and its prevention? Can implement effective prevention strategies for excessive alcohol use, enforce existing laws and regulations about alcohol sales and service, develop community coalitions with schools, law enforcement, healthcare, and public health agencies to reduce excessive alcohol use, and monitor and report prevalence, frequency, and intensity of binge drinking within the community. Some treatment methods for alcohol abuse with the goal of sobriety: medical alcohol detoxes, alcohol counseling, medications such as naltrexone, Vivitrol, Campril, and Antabuse can help reduce cravings. They can aid in recovery, inpatient and residential treatment, and self-care or abstinence. And the case study I chose was that of Jennifer. Jennifer is a 32-year-old single mom of 2 young boys. Recently, she lost her job as a hotel receptionist and has been unable to find another position with similar pay and benefits. Her anxiety over her situation has become out of hand, and she is always depressed. In order to take away the feelings of helplessness, inadequacy, and failure, Jennifer has begun to drink more and more frequently. On occasion, she has driven while intoxicated with the children in the car and has even begun to black out by their bedtime. She shows little interest in her children and their activities. In the past, Jennifer only drank alcohol occasionally and only on nights out without her boys. Her family has noticed the changes and increased drinking patterns. They've become concerned that she has been pushing them away as they try to help her. She has begun avoiding her friends and isolating in her home, often drinking alone and in the morning. So the stages of alcohol use Jennifer has gone through: the abstention stage. As a teen, Jennifer did not drink alcohol or use other substances at all. Throughout high school, she focused on her schoolwork. She aspired to attend a prestigious college. She rarely went to parties and did not hang out with a drinking crowd. And she moved to the experimental stage, where as a college student, Jennifer met new friends who frequently attended parties and drank alcohol, and Jennifer tried drinking a few times. Recreational and the social stage, Jennifer began going out to parties more often on the weekends and usually had a few drinks on those nights. Other times she would make plans that did not involve alcohol. And she moved into the habitual stage. By the end of her college career, Jennifer was drinking every weekend night. During the week, she rarely drank alcohol, but she looked forward to the weekends when she could have a drink and unwind. This pattern continued for years after college and even after having her children. Moving on to the abuse stage, when Jennifer lost her job and her anxiety and depression increased, she began drinking almost daily. Though she did not drink until the boys were in bed, she drank each night to excess. And finally, the dependent stage, Jennifer began drinking earlier and earlier in the day, sometimes needing an eye-opener first thing in the morning to steady her shakes. She was isolating from her friends and family and usually drinking alone in her home. Some treatment recommendations for Jennifer to treat her alcohol abuse could be medical hospital detox, and then leading into an IOP or intensive outpatient care, which could include a PHP or a partial hospitalization program. And that could move on to ongoing individual therapy and incorporating some support groups, 12-step meetings to maintain long-term sobriety. And finally, a quick quote: recovery is about progression, not perfection.